This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 259.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramzi Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Ramzi Majaba, and the purpose of this podcast is to help sales engineers excel, get jobs, just be good sales engineers in general. And I have a great guest today. His name is Ryan Fries. And what got me interested in chatting with him, I mean, there's a lot of things that got me interested, but one thing is side hustles, how he's used the side hustles that he have to actually secure jobs. And that's one of the many topics we cover today. It's a big one. So some people think that side hustles are bad. He does not. Let's talk about it. Hey Ryan, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I like the books behind you. You must be very well read.
It's better than my real background, which is just a blank white wall, which is not fun.
No.
I went through a lot of Google images to find one until I eventually liked it.
I have like holes in my wall. Maybe I should be using background. The one background I like is the Top Gun background, where it looks like you're in the fighter jet.
Okay.
I don't think it's very professional, but still, customers like it.
I've joined customer calls with like a Grinch background for the holidays, and I change it up all the time. So I think customers, they'll get a laugh out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that you're human. So before we start talking about customers and all that, who are you? Can you tell us your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of things. So a little bit of background starting from, I guess, early age. I've always been kind of like that shy kid. So would never want to talk to people, was very introverted. If I had to do a presentation, even in college time, like you'd see my hand kind of going like this, like very nervous to speak in front of my class. And I knew I just, once college was coming to an end, I knew I kind of had to change myself. The background a little bit, I also used to be pretty heavy set. So like I've lost over 100 pounds. So as a part of that, I really made like a shift to being a more healthier, happier person. So that came with taking care of my body, taking care of my mind. So I read a lot of motivational books, learned how to cook myself, ate healthier, and ended up landing my first job as a business analyst after graduating with a computer engineering, computer science degree, which most people will be like, wow, that's impressive. To be honest, like I don't know how to code at all. I'm not a developer, so I use almost nothing I learned in college in my day-to-day. But worked in a year as a business analyst, just really out of luck. So a company called JM Family, so Southeast Toyota, did that for a bit. But that's not important. What really started my career is I ended up landing a role with Citrix at a new hire training program where essentially they bring in fresh college graduates and they train them to either be a consultant or a sales engineer. So I got exposure to both roles as well as a couple others, but knew immediately like SE just resonated with me. The relationship building, the ability to have a quota. So I've always been like financially driven as well. So knowing I had something to aim towards to earn a portion of my pay was something that just really aligned with me. More recently, so after that, worked in the field for a bit as an SE. I've always been an SE outside of that 1 year as a business analyst. So more recently, I work for a company called ID.me, which a lot of your listeners will probably know just because we have 100+ million members where we do online identity verification and community verification. And then I worked a lot in the channel for a company called Ingram Micro. So if any of you are familiar with channel partners and MSPs, VARs, that kind of thing, did a lot of that as well.
So lot to unpack here. So my first question, you became a business analyst, and then you joined Citrix in their academy, if you will. So you already had experience, right? Like it's not you weren't technically a new grad. So I'm curious how you convinced them to hire you, because sometimes people find trouble there. And also, let's answer that question first.
Yeah, so the way Citrix worked, which is really unique, they went to primarily like more like Ivy League level schools. So think of like your Georgia Techs, your Brown universities, and they actually went to their career fairs to recruit potential candidates to be a part of this new hire training program. I was the only one in my class that actually applied online. Just I was bored at my last job. So I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. I'll get into that a little later. But because I was so bored, I ended up starting my first affiliate website, which I don't know if you know what affiliate marketing is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know,
So,
but explain it to the people if they don't know.
yeah, so basically, if you buy something from an affiliate marketing website, you're not buying it from them. They're referring you to the website that sells that item. And if you make that purchase, they get a percentage of the actual sale. So if you've ever been to like thisiswhyimbroke.com or shut up and take my money, those are a couple of the big ones. If you buy anything from there, you're actually supporting them in a way because they're getting a kickback on you referring them. It's kind of like credit card point referrals. So if you refer a friend to a credit card and you get a referral bonus, it's sort of the same concept.
Well, I think everyone's familiar with like anyone who reviews something and then they have an Amazon link in their YouTube video.
Yeah,
if someone clicks on it, they get a referral fee. So
yeah. So that's what I first started in. It made me a whole maybe like $30 in Amazon gift cards. I still have the website. If anyone's interested, it looks cool. It's called thefoodhead.com. Like visually looking, it's really appealing, and like it's still something I'm proud, and I have it on my resume today because it just visually looks really great, even though it makes no money. And it gets actually decent visitors. I think maybe like 1,000 a month or something along those lines. But I put that. What's that?
The feud head.
The food head. I'll put it in the chat for you if you want to take a look. And for anyone who's interested, maybe you could put it in the.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to buy something from there, I'll get a referral fee for anyone listening. But yeah, so I did that just for fun because I literally was asking my manager, hey, I'm bored, I need more work. And she's like, we don't have any work for you right now. So as people are walking by my screens, they're seeing all these kinds of food items that I'm posting on my website that I'm creating while at work because I just didn't have anything to do and nobody cared. So I put that on my resume and looked up all the tech companies that were in my area. So I live in South Florida, so West Palm Beach. At the time, I lived in Boca, which is where JM Family was located. So Citrix was not very far at all. So they had the new hire training program. I'm like, this is perfect. I don't have really any experience outside of a year as a business analyst. Applied, and I think a week or two later, I actually got a call back, and they sent me out. Typically, the way it works is it's a group of people going through an interview process together, and they have like a presentation they have to do. For me, it was just me by myself. Okay. And the class was about to start. I was literally a last second addition, and everything they asked me about was not about my experience at JM Family. They're so curious about the website I built. They're like, wow, that's so cool. And I went to Florida Atlantic University for college, which is not a fancy college at all. Nobody knows FAU, or very few people know. So that's not why they hired me. I think it's just because I did something that's out of the norm, which is what I suggest a lot of people do. Is when you're going through the interview process or even setting up your resume, if you have any side hustles or volunteer experience, like that type of stuff can really resonate with potential hiring managers. I really attest to that being the only reason I got hired.
Cool. All right. So, okay. And okay, that was my first question. What was my second question? Jeez.
That's probably a very long-winded response to your first question. So you probably forgot.
That was good. It's good because a lot of, even right now, like people who have experience and all that, they may want to shift like industries, remain sales engineers, but a different industry. It's good to show that you can learn different things, right? Versus I'm in my industry, I learned. The second question I had was, did you know about sales engineering before you applied? So
no idea.
So why did you apply? What impressed you?
Entry level tech job, wanted more money, wanted something different. Actually, when I read it, I did know what a consultant was because it does say on the job description, I think like prepares you to either be a consultant or a sales engineer. Okay. Going into it, even after the initial interview, like I remember calling my dad and I'm like, oh, like I'm going to be a consultant. That's what I want to do. So I had no idea about sales engineering. It didn't initially even resonate to me. until I actually got the exposure and the experience to go through what they called a rotation and actually test out being a sales engineer on the sales floor.
Okay. And then you did a couple of different things, and you became a channel SE.
Mhm.
Let's dig into that a little bit deeper, if you don't mind. Can you explain what is a channel SE to begin with?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of background. I give long-winded answers, so I apologize in
No,
advance.
don't apologize. There's a lot to take away from it.
Yeah, so my time at Citrix, after going through the training, there's a rotation aspect where you get to test out being a consultant or an SE. I worked on the inside sales floor for, I'd say, almost a year. And by now, I should have had a field position. Unlike consulting, if I wanted to be a consultant, I could have just like immediately said, hey, can I go consulting? Because I had good feedback and it would have been an easy transition. But for a field SE, because Citrix is such a large enterprise customer, you had to apply for that position in the territory. And it was just a weird timing where nothing opened up during that time. I end up getting one interview at Citrix finally for a partner sales engineer role. And I interviewed for it. I got a verbal offer that I was going to get hired. And then crickets, 4 weeks later, the hiring manager comes back to me. This is the hiring manager at Citrix. He says, hey, I'm so sorry. I really wanted to hire you, but Citrix pulled away the position. They took away my funding. So at that point, I was like, I remember just being super defeated. And I went back to the consulting manager and said, hey, like, I want to try consulting. I can't get an SE job. Like, I don't know what's going on, but nothing's opening up. So he's like, okay, no problem. He sent me to a 4-week trip in Hawaii. So I got to spend 4 weeks in Honolulu. I had every consultant and architect messaging me, how did you get away with this? Like, I wanted to go to Hawaii. I'm like, well, I guess he really wanted me to join the consulting team. And you can't ask for a better project than in Hawaii. And honestly, the customer was super chill too, but I wasn't enjoying what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. So while I was there, I still ended up applying for other companies.
Right.
Got a local company called Crossmatch actually reach out to me while I was in Hawaii, got a job offer doing virtual interviews and did that for a bit. The reason this is important is because a year and a half later, after working as a field SE at Crossmatch, Ingram Micro reached out to me as a channel SE, and they said, hey, we got your name from Robert, who's the guy who felt really bad pulling away the position. So it ended up being like a full circle. Even though I didn't get that position because Citrix pulled funding, I did end up landing a partner sales engineer role or a channel sales engineer role a year and a half later at a partner of Citrix's, and Citrix was the actual technology I supported.
Okay.
So going back to your initial,
Before we get to that question, because I have now a million questions about.
yeah,
what is the difference? A lot of times, sales engineering and solution consulting are the same thing, just different
Yep.
times. It sounds that they're different things at Citrix. Can you define like what is what is consulting versus sales engineering?
Yeah, it's a good point for your audience, especially. So consultants post sales. So from the Citrix world, customer purchases, a consultant's the one that's actually integrating the solution. So they're doing all the requirements, they're doing the kickoff call, they're creating all the documentation, post the actual engagement. So they're integrating the solution. Whereas a sales engineer, you're doing the demos, the proof of concepts, you're actually trying to sell them the actual solution.
So what didn't you like about consulting?
Man, it was so much at the pace of the customer. There was just so many times where when you're, and I've noticed this, I did some consulting at Crossmatch too, because it was a startup. When you go for a consulting engagement, you're really at the mercy of your customer. So if your customer is not ready for you to make that next step, half the time you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, waiting for the customer to get either approval from whatever they require from a hierarchy perspective, or like they just aren't ready for you. So you're sitting there, the company's happy because they're still getting paid, but you're bored out of your mind. And then also, if you do have strict deadlines, it became very stressful a lot of times when you have to meet those deadlines. I remember one project we're working like 12 to 14-hour days, whereas in pre-sales you almost never run into that. So in my opinion, like there's still a sales element to consulting as well, because you want to still establish a relationship with the customer.
Yeah.
But the day-to-day activities and the level of engagement is just, in my opinion, a lot better on the pre-sale side than the post-sale side. And a lot less documentation. I hated documentation. That was not fun.
Yeah. Speaking of twiddling your thumbs, I was in support, and
Yeah.
like part of the team that I was in, we did some like post-sales implementation and all that. And I got shipped to China for 3 weeks.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I was not allowed to leave my hotel between 9
Oh,
and
that's not
5.
cool.
So I never got past my jet lag until like the last week. Yeah, but yeah, like there's a lot of just hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah,
that.
I couldn't stand it. I'm a type A personality. As we talk more, I can talk through like some of my side businesses and side hustles. Like I'm always doing something. So that just drove me nuts. I couldn't stand it.
So all right, why couldn't you use the time to work on your side hustles while we were there? Were they
Well,
watching your computer?
yeah, I mean, you can to an extent, right? But when you're there on a customer site, because you're typically in their office on their network,
Yeah.
like somebody walks up behind you and you're working on the food head and they see pictures of like like a penis egg thing, like that might bring up some questions. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I also worked as another story where I was an SME for another company. Like I was dedicated to one company. There was 20 people that are on the team. There was enough work for 2. And if you ask your boss for more work, they say, "Sorry, I can't give you work other than for this company."
yeah.
But yeah, like I get that. Okay. All right. I want to talk about your side hustles, but let's get back to the original question about like what's a channel SE?
Yeah, so I actually have a YouTube video on this that explains the channel. So plug in my YouTube there.
What's your can you share the link with me after so I can put it on my
Yeah.
channel on my
Yeah, I'll share it. It might not be pertinent to all of you, but if any of you are aspiring SEs, I always say look for more than just like typical vendor slash manufacturer type position. So think of like your Microsoft, Amazons of the world. There's a lot of technology resellers that sell into customers and they support sometimes hundreds of products. And those are potentially even better opportunities for you to land an initial role, because now you're getting exposure to more than just a single vendor solution. So when we talk about the channel, if we take like a Microsoft as an example, and Microsoft is the vendor, the manufacturer, they have their own solution that they're selling, and they're selling to, let's say, a Walmart, which is going to be a customer, it's very seldom, and maybe in this case they would because Walmart's enterprise, but it's very seldom in most cases where Microsoft will sell directly to a customer. They typically involve what's called a middleman, which is a value-added reseller, sometimes referred to as a managed service provider or a technology reseller. There's all sorts of terms involved. So the value of the technology reseller or that value-added reseller is they oftentimes have technical subject matter experts on Microsoft solutions, and they also have relationships with contacts at the customers that Microsoft is trying to sell into. So they have more of a holistic view. And a lot of times, because they have that relationship, the customer will actually go to the reseller saying, "Hey, here's my pain point. This is my business need. Come back to me with some vendor solutions that can solve for this." And it's the actual reseller that suggests the different vendor solutions that can solve for that pain point. So you almost always have to work with a channel partner in order to have a broader selling force out in the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's more feet on the ground. Like that's something that every salesperson I've ever heard. Oh, we need more feet on the ground, like more feet on the ground. How do we do
And
that?
you only pay them when they sell, which is the great thing about
Yeah,
the channel.
exactly. Like instead of hiring a salesperson, just giving them straight out commission. Well, that's what you're doing, really. The downside is that their focus is not on your product. Like you can get invited, you can be selling Citrix, or you could be selling the direct competitor of it. Well, maybe not you, but the salesperson at least.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Did you enjoy being like a channel SE?
Yeah, I mean, I did it for 4 years. So again, type A personality. If I didn't enjoy it, I don't think I would have done it for 4 years. What's interesting about Ingram Micro is not a channel reseller. Ingram Micro is a technology distributor. So some fun facts about Ingram Micro, just to, I guess, create the idea of scale in everyone who's listening's mind. Ingram Micro handles about, I think, a third of all cell phones are somehow funneled through Ingram Micro. I think a third of all Amazon purchases are funneled through Ingram Micro from a distribution perspective. And then from a technology perspective, I don't know the percentage, but I would say a significant portion, 50% plus of technology sales, is somehow funneled and touched by Ingram Micro. So as a distributor, they're kind of the middleman of the middleman, where they work on high volume, low margin business. So if I was Microsoft and I'm the partner selling Microsoft, I work with a distributor like Ingram Micro to help with creating quotes, to help with the purchase orders, to get financing. So Ingram Micro helps with all of those activities. And again, very high volume, very low margin. So we're talking 1 to maybe 6% of margin for the actual profit. But I think in 1 year they grew like $1 billion. So the size of some small country's actual entire economy. So it just shows the scale. And so I was there to empower channel resellers to sell more Citrix, and then eventually iGel, and then eventually VMware were the 3 vendors I supported.
Okay. So you worked, before you went to Ingram Micro, you worked at Crossmatch. You mentioned it's a startup. You mentioned you were an SE, not channel. You worked direct. So is that correct?
Yeah.
So basically, I feel like you are a perfect person to compare and contrast channel SE versus direct SE, and also startup versus a behemoth like Ingram Micro.
Yeah.
So what do you see the differences are between, let's start off with channel SE versus regular SE or direct SE?
Yeah. So the primary difference is you're not as involved with customer opportunities in the channel as you are to direct. So your customers are your partners. So when you get brought on to a customer conversation, it's always through a channel partner. So if you don't enjoy that and you want to have always that touch point, that direct relationship with the customer, rather than with a channel partner who has that relationship with the customer, channel SE is not for you. Also, if we talk about because at the end of the day, we're in this to make money, why else work? The part of your variable for your OTE is typically driven by, a lot of times, MBOs, which is, think of MBOs as more like activity driven tasks that you can attain to receive a part of your variable component. And the other portion is oftentimes commission driven, which is typically tied to what your channel partners are selling in your territory. Whereas as a direct SE, your salary is typically entirely, or your variable component of your salary is almost entirely based on your overall commission for your territory, because you're selling directly to the consumer. So there's a lot of nuances with that. And then you're almost more like a trainer as a channel sales engineer, because you're training partners how to resell products. Whereas, as a direct SE, you're doing a lot of demos, POCs. So you don't do many of them as a channel SE.
Okay. So a few keywords are like OTE, on target earning, MBO, management by objective. Just for people who want to search these terms out. And if I understand correctly, if you're a channel partner, it's mostly management by objective.
A lot of it, usually from my experience, and I've talked to people at other distributors as well, a significant portion of your variable pay is usually MBO driven, so activity driven. And that could be maybe you're hosting 4 webinars a quarter to enable partners. You're doing 10 demos to partners to try and show them a new feature that they should be selling to their customers. So it's literally all sales enablement. It's basically you as a trainer trying to train salespeople as to how to sell the product you're supporting in the channel.
Okay. And you mentioned the things that you're doing on the side, your side hustles. One, other than being a type A personality, why do you need side hustles, in your opinion?
I mean, I'm big on FIRE. So for those of you who know about FIRE, financial independence, retire early. Not that I necessarily want to retire early, but I like the concept that if
Freedom is good.
yeah, if my boss pisses me off or my company pisses me off, now I have the opportunity to say, all right, see ya. Like, I don't care. I don't need this job. I have all this other income coming in from these other sources. So that's why I do it. And also I think it's fun. Like, I like to try different things, and if it sticks and I enjoy it, then I keep it going. If I don't enjoy it, then I'll still try to keep it, but like try to make that more passive if I can.
Okay. And so you mentioned you have several side hustles.
Yeah.
Do you have a list? Can you list them out?
Yeah, so I did really good on Amazon in 2021. I did pretty good on Amazon last year. So I sell some stuff on Amazon. I've sold stuff on Etsy for about 3 or 4 years, which does decent now. When I talk about when you don't enjoy it anymore, try to make it passive. I have a family member that manages Etsy for me now. So she handles all the customer service. It's actually my aunt, and she handles shipping all of my product as well. And we just split everything 50-50. I just don't care about the business, and it helps her out because she needs the money. And then I'm still collecting like things like 10 or 20,000 I'll probably make in profit for the year. So it's still pretty decent. So do those two things. I have a real estate portfolio. So right now I have 4 properties. 2 are rented. One's a duplex, one's a condo. The other condo is the one I live in right now. And then in October, I bought, it's kind of like a duplex, but it's a main house with a accessible dwelling unit and ADU in the back. And I'm renovating those both to Airbnb, hopefully soon.
Nice.
Oh, and I also teach. So I'm a technical sales instructor at Careers. So that was more recent. I started that in November.
All right. Well, I guess the obvious question is, how do you find time to do all that?
That's the question everyone asks. I don't know. My wife says I don't find time and I need to get rid of some of these other things, which she's not wrong about. Yeah, you just do it. You figure it out. Again, if you can make it passive, that's the best way to approach it. So like real estate, I have a property in Gainesville. I live in West Palm. For context, I think it's like 5 hours away. I got a property manager that manages that. So I literally do nothing for that, and I collect a paycheck. For Etsy, again, Etsy managed by a family member. So I don't have to do anything for that anymore. Amazon, this is a long story and I don't want to get into it, but it's managed by a friend of mine now. So he handles that for me. So I've been able to slowly, like, I mean, I have less margin now as far as profit, but I have more time in my day, which is at the end of the day what I need, by leveraging other people and having them manage it on my behalf. So truly making it passive.
Okay. By the way, I love real estate as well. We talked about that last time. We kind of shared stories about what I own and what you own. So I 100% love that. I pretty much love everything you've done. The question that pops in my mind, like when you talk to hiring managers or recruiters, do you mention all this stuff or do you just ignore it?
Yeah, to recruiters, maybe not, unless they ask me, because some of them are listed on my resume, like the stuff that's more technically focused, I have it listed on my resume. And then they'll ask because they'll be naturally curious. But when it comes to hiring managers, yeah, I'm a big proponent when somebody says, tell me about yourself, to truly tell somebody about yourself. I think our culture nowadays is when somebody asks you about yourself, you just list your job history, which doesn't really tell them about anything about yourself. That's not what's going to make you stick out. What's going to make you stick out is, your personality, your why are you even working? Do you have a family you care about? What do you like about where you live, your hobbies, your side hustles, your volunteer work? And it's amazing when you share that stuff. That ends up being the bulk of your conversation, especially the initial one with the hiring manager. So I always bring up all that stuff.
So I work with clients and I tell them, I say the same thing as you. And so sometimes their question is, well, like, aren't the managers worried that I'm going to go leave and go full time onto my real estate or whatever? Like, what do you think? Why do managers like it?
Yeah, I've had every single manager I've had have, they've been inspired by it. And they'll actually ask questions and be like, how can I do this? They're never afraid that because I'm doing these other things that I'm going to leave. Like I'm applying there for a reason and I'm interviewing there for a reason. It's not making me that much money where I can't have a day job and I need insurance. So it's never been an issue for me.
Well, I think the big thing that I try to show is, even though I'm doing all this stuff on the side, I still love sales engineering.
Oh yeah.
Why I want to stay. Like, sales engineering becomes a passion, less a job, because I have the luxury of picking what I want.
Yeah.
So that's how I try to formulate it when I talk to hiring managers, because they see we DSEs as well. They know about real estate sometimes. So yeah, most managers love the fact that you're doing that, because in every job description there's the like, oh, you need to be a self-starter. It's in every job description. You need to be held accountable. You need to be able to figure out stuff. That's proof that you've done all that in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that. I actually just had my annual review today. Well, sort of. It was last week, but it wasn't ready. So it was primarily today. And that was one of the primary objectives was that I was ranked on is, hey, are you a go-getter? Because that's so important as an SC, is not always having to be told what to do. You just do it yourself and you think of unique ways to solve for a business need or how you can get your company out there. And I think naturally, if you show, hey, I'm a go-getter in these other aspects of my life, that's just a trait that's innate within you. So when you end up being somebody that's being hired for that role, I think your hiring manager will just expect that that trait will transfer to being a sales engineer.
Yeah. If you're a go-getter in one aspect in your life, you're probably a go-getter in multiple aspects.
Yeah.
It's not something you can turn on and off. So you've moved to a couple of different jobs. I mean, you explained to me why you went from Citrix to Crossmatch, and from Crossmatch to Ingram Micro. Why did you decide to move from Ingram Micro to ID.me?
Yeah, I wasn't learning that much anymore. I think that was the biggest one for me. So working the channel was fun, and learning the channel was a lot of fun, especially in the beginning. And I was still learning somewhat, but I felt like where I was in my career, I wasn't getting, I don't know if it was like enough like enterprise level exposure and running into more. I think I just wanted something that was more challenging, more where I can grow as an individual. I mean, I'm still young. Even now, I'm 32 as I'm recording this. And I think it was just ready. Like, it was just that time where I knew I wasn't waking up super excited every single day. And that just told me I needed something new and fresh and something that would challenge me more.
And I want to go back to Citrix, where you interviewed for the partner SE role. You didn't get the job. Well, you did get the job, but then they took it away.
Yeah.
How was that interaction with the hiring manager? A lot of people would have been pissed off, said some not nice things. Like, how did you handle that to begin with, so that you can get that referral later on?
Yeah, at the time I didn't even think about that, right? Like, it just was a matter of fact. So he was really cool about it. I can tell his sincerity and his empathy when he was sharing the news with me. So I knew it wasn't something that was his fault. So like there would be no value in me acting pissed off to him when I knew he genuinely wanted to bring me on to his team. Thinking now with my experience, thinking back now, yeah, if anyone runs into that situation, even when you're interviewing, if somebody rejects you during any interview process, like, treat that very humbly and learn from that experience. And you can even ask a hiring manager if they're willing to share, what was it about another candidate that you didn't have, or what could you have personally improved on? And if you create the relationship, whether you don't get hired or even if you turn down an offer, you never know when that relationship will come back to, help you in the future. Like, that's something that I am a big proponent of. Is I like to interview. I like to make relationships, even if I'm not necessarily looking. I still keep my options open because you never know what the future holds. Tech's a small world.
Yeah. Have you turned down an offer?
Oh, so many. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also used a lot of offers to get pay increases. I'm notoriously bad at that.
So okay, you use okay.
I'd be cautious though. So if anyone's looking to do that, I'd be very cautious doing that.
So okay, let's start off with how did you turn down offers? What was the conversation like?
Yeah, I'm usually very transparent. So a lot of times I will just share that, the salary offer you're proposing just isn't aggressive enough for me to make a switch. Like I like where I'm working. And I shared that with the recruiter in the beginning saying like, hey, I'm not looking, but since you reached out to me on LinkedIn, I'll have a conversation. But it would have to be super compelling for me to make a switch, either salary wise or opportunity wise, like a technology I'm really interested in as an example. So most of the time I just share that, hey, like this just isn't appealing enough of an opportunity for me to make a switch. I'm really happy where I'm at. But if something new comes up in the future, like let me know and we can rediscuss. And that's worked out really well for me. I've had a lot of hiring managers, again, Texas small world, actually bring me referrals before of customers. I brought them customer referrals before because we established that relationship now. So, I just say be genuine, be honest, just don't be a jerk about it.
And you've used offers to get raises at your jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, some people say you should never do that. I know
Yeah.
I've done it. How do you manage that without without leaving a bad taste in whoever's mouth?
Yeah, well, I would say if you ever do that, it's more risky, right? So if you ever decide to use an external offer to get a pay raise, be prepared to leave. So there is a chance where your hiring manager will say no, or they'll be pissed because you're using external offer, and it, in other words, puts a strain on your relationship potentially. It depends on your hiring manager and depends on your relationship with them. But most of the time, I'll propose it to them and be like, look, I really, really enjoy working here, but this company is valuing me at $20,000 more. Is there anything you can do to come close to this? I would rather stay here because I enjoy here, but I also have my own family I need to support. I have my own bills that I have to pay. And if you approach it that way in a place of sincerity where you really do want to stay, but at the same time, you have to look out for yourself, I think human to human, most managers will understand that.
Yeah. I mean, on the side of understanding that every company increases your quota every year. So if they're not expecting you to increase your salary every year, there's something wrong with them. The other thing I would warn about, it goes beyond the manager. So I had a similar situation where I didn't even get an offer. Like a competitor came and started talking to me.
Yeah.
And they told me the number that they would give me. So I went to my manager and said, listen, they came and talked to me. I don't even want to continue this conversation with them, but this is what they said they could offer me. Can you do something? Can you help me out? He was like, yeah, happy to do that. He was perfectly fine. His boss and his boss's boss kept hounding me for 4 years, telling me that I'm unloyal to the company and that, like I could leave any second. It's like, I didn't want to leave. That's why I asked for the raise.
That's why I say you have to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm confirming what you're saying. And even if your boss is great about it, they probably didn't hear the story. My boss probably went to them and said, Ramsey got an offer, we need to match it.
Yeah.
Right. So you never know what could happen higher up and all that. So Ryan, we're about to go to the not so fire round. But before we get there, was there any question you were hoping I was going to ask you, which I did not?
I don't know. Not really.
Well, if you think of it,
if we want to go into technical sales instructing at all with careers, if that's of interest at all for your audience, or maybe that's a conversation for a future time.
We'll leave that as a conversation for a future time at this point. Let's get to the not so fire round. And if people want to know more about careers, they can reach out to you, I guess, or somebody. So let's start off. These are the same 4 questions I ask pretty much every guest, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Question number 1 is, why do you love sales engineering? You've been doing this for a long time now. Why are you still doing it?
Yeah, not that long compared to a lot of other people, but long enough to could say I'm a senior. I do have senior in my role, so thumbs up there. But really, I'd say again, if you are the type of personality where you don't like being bored, every day is different, every week's different. You work with all sorts of personalities, different personalities from your sales team, from management, from your own internal team, customer personalities. Like it's just fun. Like literally what you did yesterday is going to be different than what you do today. And what you do next week could be drastically different than what you did the previous week. So keeps you on your toes. You're constantly getting exposure to new technology, new ideas. So I think it's one of the most fun jobs out there, and it pays really well.
Yes, it does. All right. So the next question is, if I were to meet with your manager, what would he or she say is your superpower?
Oh man. I mean, we could bring him on. He'd be an interesting guest, actually.
All right, introduce us.
uh,
I'll ask. It's a gentleman, it seems. I'll ask him what
Yeah.
he would say his superpower is. So,
Yeah, I'd be curious. So I think he would say for me, it's either going to be curiosity, because I'm always asking questions. Like I am not afraid to ask questions, even regardless of who's in the room. Or I would say like what you're referring to either or earlier is like that go-getterness. So doing things that are outside the norm of the day-to-day activity. So I've established through my channel background like a lot of partnerships at my current company, which I think more than doubled our partnerships before I started in less than a year. And that's just because I knew the market really well. That wasn't required of my job, but I thought it'd bring a lot to the business. So just having that go-getter personality is definitely what I would think he would say my superpower is.
what do you say your superpower? What do you say about your own superpower?
Oh man, I don't know. uh yeah, I don't know. Maybe I think one thing I'm strong at, as I've noticed over my years, is establishing strong relationships with people. Like naturally, just liking people and wanting to learn more and being curious about others. I'd say that's something that's really propelled my career is just making relationships just through natural curiosity of other people.
Actually, this brings me back to like a top. Like when you first started, you said you were a very shy kid.
Mhm.
Like, how did you overcome that to get to the superpower of connecting with people?
Yeah, a lot of self-reflection, like, just reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm big Tony Robbins fanboy here, so listen to a lot of his content and just feeling more comfortable and confident in myself and who I am as a person. Once I overcame the struggles I had with myself and the way I viewed myself, I think naturally I just gravitated more towards people. I'd still lean myself more introverted because I need that time by myself to recharge. But I'm definitely like a social introvert. Even though I don't want to talk to people necessarily 24 hours a day, I do naturally like people and want to learn more about them and establish relationships with them. So I think it just happened just over time, just self-reflection and learning about myself.
Just unrelated to the not so fire on. Do you find yourself you do better in one-on-one situations or in group situations?
I'm definitely a one-on-one person. Yeah.
Same here. I'm trying to see
Yeah.
if everybody's like every introvert I've talked to so far, they do better in one-on-one situations.
Yeah, I when it comes to like parties and stuff, I still feel awkward, right? Because I don't know who to go up to, what to say. If it's a group of my close friends, so like we have our friend circle here, I'm good. But
Yeah,
if it's a bunch of strangers at a party, I feel super awkward. If it's one-on-one with a stranger though, I'm good.
yeah,
Like no problem at all.
yeah.
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
I'm 100% the same way, and that's why I find like if we go to a sales kickoff, like I don't
Yeah,
want to hang out with all these people. But
yeah.
so if I sit on a chair and at the sales kickoff, if I sit on a chair outside where everybody is, and one person comes and sits, we chat for hours. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's funny. I wonder if that is one of the differences between being naturally introverted versus naturally extroverted.
The reason I'm bringing this up is a lot of people say, "Oh, if you're a sales engineer, you have to be an extrovert," and I'm
Mhm.
saying, no, you could like introverts actually do very well as sales engineers because we are
Yeah.
naturally more leaning towards not talking. We listen more and all that. And even when we connect, like introverts can't connect with people. It's like, no, we can. We just don't enjoy doing it on like a group basis. It's hard to connect with people on a group basis, right? You have to
Yeah.
be the life of the party. Anyways,
Not only that, if any of you are interested in going the traditional SDR AE route, some of the best AEs I've ever worked with are definitely introverted. And the reason they're sometimes better is exactly what Ramsey's saying is they listen more, they give the customer actually time to talk. So you are actively listening and you're responding to what they just talked to you about. A lot of people that are naturally more extroverted just keep on talking and talking and talking, whereas a more introverted leaning person takes the time to actually listen and hear more of what the other person is going to say. But
yeah,
both are, you can teach both personality types. You just have to be more cognizant of it.
I think both do great, and each one brings their own strengths. Like an extrovert can naturally just go and talk to anybody potentially.
Yeah,
An introvert may need some work. An extrovert needs some work to sit down and not say something. Extroverts naturally do that. So,
exactly. You just have
and
to be
I'm
cognizant of it either way. The area you lack, be aware of it and try to improve it.
and I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of people saying like, "No, that's not true. I'm an extrovert and I do this." And we're generalizing here.
Yeah.
You might be different. Everyone's different, but in general, this is how we see it. And two introverts here agree. There
Yeah.
you go. So, what is there a resource you would recommend, or what resource did you find worked best for you to learn about sales engineering, get better, or actually about life in general, or side hustles, whichever one you want to answer?
Man, there's so many out there. I guess it would be more of who I'm talking to as far as like what I would recommend. So if it was somebody that's aspiring to get into tech sales and become a sales engineer, there's a lot of good resources out there. There's a lot of sales engineering focused books, listening to, Ramsey's channel here, or you can listen to some of my videos. I haven't made a video in 9 months, but you can still check them out. Those are all great ways to get initial exposure. From there, I mean, there are streamlined courses out there that you can take if you want to really try and jumpstart your career into tech sales, but you can also just find individuals that are already in those positions and have conversations with them. If you know somebody within your circle, or you could find somebody on LinkedIn that's willing to talk to you and you can learn more about what they do on a day-to-day basis, that's always super helpful. For me, just in like to generalize some things that I like, I'm a big podcast fan, so mental health is, I think, a big thing. So if any of you are fans of like Jay Shetty, Tony Robbins, I listen to all of that stuff off and on. I also listen to some like nonsensical podcasts because after a long day of work, sometimes I just want to laugh and not learn anything new. So I do that a lot of times, and I'm just constantly learning, reading new books, watching videos. I'll sometimes buy like Udemy trainings just to learn a new skill set. So all of that stuff is good.
Did you know that Udemy now has a subscription model, or maybe they've had it for a long time? But like,
Yeah, I
it's
didn't know that.
40 Canadian dollars a month, which is like $3 US, and you can watch everything.
That's
Uh,
not bad. Yeah.
I
There's
just
a
found,
lot of good content on there.
yeah, I just found that out as I was looking. All right, last question of the not so fire on Ryan. Is there a habit you're working on today to improve in your personal or professional life?
Uh, yeah, I would say there's a few. So I got into a bad habit through the Airbnb renovations where I have not been going to the gym as regularly. So I need to pick that habit back up. I used to be so good. If I don't go 4 to 5 days a week, like it would mess with my week. I'm lucky if I go once or twice a week now because I broke the habit because it's very easy to build a new habit. And I broke that habit because I was literally every single day after work going to my property and renovating it.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that every single day, and I'm still not going to the gym. So that's one I want to pick up is doing that again.
So
Waking up earlier is another one that I'm really big on. So right now I've been bad too. I've been waking up at like 8, and I used to be a 6:30 kind of person. So want to pick up that again as well. And then working less soon. So my wife's expecting in September. So I need to hopefully move some additional things off my plate. So when the baby comes, I'll have more time for family time.
Nice. Well, congratulations on the baby when the baby
Thanks.
comes. Um, it's amazing. I wish I could wake up at 8. I have 3 kids who, if I wake up at 8, they would have been out for like 2 hours jumping on my head, which happens. Ryan, if people want to reach out and connect with you, where can they do that?
Yeah, you could reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to find me there. You can find me on my YouTube if you want to watch some of my videos, but those are probably the 2 best ways, is either message on YouTube or message me on LinkedIn.
All right. So we'll leave a link to both your channel and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on, Ryan. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. This is great. Appreciate it, Ramsey.
And this is the end of the show. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for listening. Thank you, Ryan, for coming on and chatting about your experiences. I love your transparency. That's it. What do you guys think? Do you have a side hustle in mind? How do you think you can use that to actually propel your career? And the thing about side hustles that I find is sometimes we pick side hustles that are hobbies, which changes the hobby from being a side hustle to like a job. And also, or we pick something that's unrelated to anything that we do today, kind of what Ryan does. My belief is that you can actually choose side hustles that help you with your career. What are they? Have you thought about those? So what are these? I'm not speaking English very well, so let's just end the show here. I appreciate you being here, and this for myself. I'm signing off.